Okay, sounds good. So people are watching this. Welcome if you're on our last call for now, last schedule one, I should say. So again, we have the guest star with us, Bo the Dozer, as we call him in the Masse house, Bo Dozer. So yeah, that's him. So last time we did the stress ball breathing, and I thought that was it's one of the most popular that I do. And I wanted just little short things that I always use for visuals with kids, right? So this one is always a kind of a big favorite, and this is on Amazon for like 20 bucks, I think. I just Googled breathing ball. And I find this is really great when we're talking about how our body handles stress, and it does this. And then when we do our breathing, it does that. So I came up with this one that you can do without this, which is calm claps. So we can show, like if Bo puts his hands like this, right? Let's that one, Bo. And then we can tell the kids that when we're really nervous or even excited or mad or frustrated, our body is like doing this, right? Our body's doing that real fast. And what we want to do is we want to slow it down with a couple big breaths. So, right, and you can see, well, Dozer's done this a million times, but you can see just even that intent of like slowing things down. There's a natural kind of expansion, contraction. And I think one of the benefits of doing mindfulness with children, especially when there's a somatic experience to it, they can see and they can feel the difference between this and this, right? They can see it. And that's what I always want, even as just an adult, knowing that when things go up, like, I have my heart rate monitor, and then when I'm nervous or anxious or worried, my heart will go fast. Oh, Bo's earpiece came out. It's okay, buddy. There we go. So when you're introducing the kids, same thing. You show them, busy, 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 clap, 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 right? That's what's happening when they're nervous, when they're worried, when they're anxious. And then we just take those 3 deep breaths in. And I think as adults, we need to do this quite a bit too, just to take these 3 deep breaths in before you go to your next meeting, right? Or before you, or meeting, or maybe the bank calls, you're like, okay, what's going on? Take these moments, introduce them with yourself first, and be comfortable with doing these exercises, and then learn how to expand that out in a practical way. The last one I wanted to kind of go over, and this is again on my website, I touched briefly on it last time, but it's this idea of the calm jar. And again, I love visuals. I love like things that people can put their hands on. So what we usually do is that if I'm doing it in a class, or if I'm doing it with a small group, or I would have the kid or the child think of when's the last time that you were mad or angry, Bo, or upset, anything, doesn't matter, whatever you want to talk about.
3 days ago.
3 days ago. Okay, so 3 days ago, Bo, is what you mad or upset about?
I think that's actually 2 days ago.
Okay, 2 days ago.
I think somebody pushed me.
Okay, so let's say something happened at school and you got pushed and he's upset. I have him put this in the jar. And then you'd have another kid, or maybe the same kid, think about another time they were mad, worried, or upset, and they put it in the jar. Right? And we get used to this idea that our mind is like this. When our mind is calm and chill, it's fairly easy to like see through. But when we keep putting stuff in the jar throughout the day, Bo, show them what happens. Shake it up. So when we start shaking it up, we can see that it's much, much, much harder to see clearly because of all the busyness. And I think as adults right now, especially when you care for humans, there's so much unknown right now. Our mind typically is like this, but the problem is it's not glitters and beautiful gems and rocks, right? And this is the stacking effect, right? I've talked about with you all many times. It's one thing on top of another thing on top of another thing. And it's more like this death of 1,000 paper cuts. And kids is, younger than Bo, can have that happen. They wake up, maybe they're rushed, they go to school feeling a little anxious, something happens at school, it's another thing in the jar. And our minds, especially even as young as like 7 or 8, can start to kind of stack things up. And so when you have this and say, wow, look at where your mind is, maybe when you're calm or chill, but when you're angry, frustrated, mad, or upset, it's really, really hard to see clearly. So what do we do to kind of slow things down? Just 3 breaths. So do 3 both. Ready? Right. And then I'll make a comment. Let's start to get slower. Beautiful. One more, buddy. See, 3 breaths, it's not that long, but it shows them that the mind went from very busy to much, 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 much calmer. Right? And I find that if you can start to introduce this in your children's life and in anyone that you're working with life, and if in your own sense, right? If you just ask yourself, how busy am I right now? Are you anxious? Are you nervous? Are you frustrated? And you take these 3 breaths, it just starts to slow things down. Here, give that back to Daddy. Okay, you can go. You want to go to Nona's? All right. Thanks, Bo. Love you, buddy. Bye. So again, all that stuff's on my website. Oh, my camera's flipping around. There we go. All that's on my website and more, or on my Instagram, and definitely on my YouTube channel. There is a bunch of techniques of just learning how to introduce this with humans of all ages, right? Again, if you're going to introduce this with anybody, I highly recommend that you speak the language. Because when a kid says, I don't want to breathe, which I've probably heard Bo say, I don't know, 1,000 times, right, Dozer? Right, that you don't want to meditate or you don't want to do your breathing, like that, you're going to meet resistance. Okay, that's a part of the deal. But it's no different than you doing the meditation. There's parts of the time when you don't want to do it or you don't want to notice what's going on. Okay, so for those that emailed me last week, again, thanks a lot. I'll make sure I've already answered a couple of the questions with the kids stuff. Now I really want to focus on you and yourself. So let's get into a brief practice, shall we? So again, just allow your eyes to close. And we'll just go into that nice relaxation place, right? We're gonna set our intent to allow our body and mind to just be present. And as you know, that's much easier said than done. But I would invite you to just let your awareness go into your body, sitting or resting. And again, you might notice that your mind will wander off or go to thoughts or thinking. But again, all I want you to do is just to notice when your mind wanders off. Notice when your mind wanders off. And we're just going to welcome it back to here. And again, no matter how many times it wanders off, we are gently just inviting it back to this present moment, to this body, in this breath, here and now. And when you're comfortable and ready, just allow yourself to bring that awareness now to the top of your head. So just allowing your awareness to go to the top of your head. Again, if you have to kind of stimulate that, just touch the top of your head, because how often do you actually think at the top of your head? So you bring that awareness to the top of your head, and now allow that awareness just very gently to go down to your forehead, down now into your eyes, down now into your nose and your mouth and your jaw, and just give yourself the permission to let it relax, or again, to allow it to soften. So if you need to yawn or stretch or move the muscles, do that. And again, noticing that your mind might or may wander off. But again, we're just going to welcome it back. Hey, come back. There's no need to be angry or mad or frustrated. Just come back. Just come back. And then again, noticing the mind wanders off. And then just come back. And then the mind wanders off. Just come back and now allow that awareness to go into the shoulders. Allow it to go into the upper back. Allow the neck to be fully in your awareness now. And then allow that awareness now to go down the arms, all the way down to the fingertips. And again, noticing that the mind might wander off. We're just coming back. And now we're going to bring that awareness now into the chest. And we're just letting the chest relax or to soften. So just let it be here. Just be here. When the mind goes off, come back. Allow your awareness to be in the chest and then now to be in the stomach. Again, we're just allowing it to be here. And again, noticing the mind wandering and just welcome it back. Thanking yourself for coming back, for being aware of your head, neck, and shoulders, your chest, and your stomach. And now bring that awareness now into your back. We're just allowing the entire back to be here, to be present in this moment. And then we allow that awareness now to go from the top of the back to the mid to the lower, now into our hips, into our sitting bones, into our thighs and hamstring, down into the knees, to the calves and shins, and then all the way to the soles of the feet. And now you're just being aware of your entire body sitting or resting in this moment. And again, just noticing what's present. And again, if your mind starts to wander, there's no need to get mad or frustrated, worried or upset. Let's just invite our awareness back into this moment. Let's invite our awareness back into the here and now. And just thanking yourself for being present in this body. And now what I suggest that you do, just to kind of deepen this relaxation, this is a little neat technique. I want you to imagine yourself standing on a beautiful staircase at the very top, and there's 10 steps at the very top. And we're just going to walk down each step. And I want you to feel yourself walking down each step. And you're going to tell yourself that as you're walking down these steps, you're allowing yourself to get more and more relaxed. So see yourself and feel yourself taking one step down. And now allowing yourself to take a second step down to 2. And now to 3. And just feeling your body getting more and more relaxed to 4. And you're noticing now that your mouth and jaw and your eyes are super relaxed. You feel incredibly restful. Again, you're not bothered by your mind going off. You just simply invite it to come back. As you take another step down, 5. Now really letting your shoulders and back just kind of drop into relaxation. To 6. Feeling your body restful. Feeling your body here. We take another step down from 6 to 7. And now to 8, and just letting your body fully relax, letting your legs relax, soles of your feet, 8, 9. Just notice your breathing. And now to 10. And now just giving yourself the permission just to notice your breathing. And again, if you're comfortable with this idea, imagine that every breath is you're breathing in from all the pores in your body and you're breathing out. And you can kind of just have that experience of expansion, contraction. I love the sense of air coming in and out, or the sensation of air making contact with my skin. Really allow yourself just to kind of notice your breathing in a couple different ways. And just let yourself go deeper and deeper into this relaxation. And again, it doesn't matter where your mind goes to. We're just bringing it back and thanking it for coming back. Thanking it for being here in the present moment. And when you're ready, very slowly and very gently, just allowing your eyes to open as you bring back this wonderful sense that you just cultivated. So when you're ready, allowing your eyes to open. So that is again, more of a somatic body relaxation technique. I always love the kind of idea of walking down the stairs. There's many ones you can do with a tree, and there's a bunch of stuff. But I find that imagery of like in getting the position and giving myself permission to take a step down each one as I'm stepping down and relaxing more and more, I really find that my body just starts to kind of drop into my chair, right? And if you do this, especially at bedtime, you can see how it can help prepare you for sleep, right? And there's nothing wrong with falling asleep to meditating if you're using it as a sleep aid. If you're only meditating when you're sleeping, that's just called sleeping, right? So if Melinda's like, Mike, I did like 4 hours of your meditation yesterday. I'm like, cool. So if I fell asleep in the first 3 minutes, well, then she meditated for 3 minutes. Okay. You don't get mindfulness through like osmosis. It's not really how it works. Hypnosis, maybe you can do some stuff that way, but with meditation, remind yourself it's a concentration game. Your mind goes away, we come back. Your mind goes away, we come back. All we're doing there is we're just going back to your body. Last week, we were coming back to the words, may I be loved, may I be healthy, may they be loved, may they be healthy. We're using the mantra as our way to come back. Today's, the last teaching of this session or these series is the importance of a teaching called Tonglen, which can kind of translate roughly, I believe, into like sending and receiving. But there's this idea of breathing in and I think, in all honesty, what we did last week with the metta and this loving kindness and wishing people well, that paired with this practice, I think, is what we really need right now in our culture. With like most people I'll talk to this week are just really fed up and frustrated, and rightfully so. I don't know anyone that's really satisfied with how things are going, right? And then I talk to doctors and they're frustrated on what's happening maybe in their clinic, and I'm talking to people who work in government and they're frustrated. I'm talking to people who own small businesses and they're really frustrated, right? Like everyone's frustrated. And again, if we start from the pyramid of the most important person is you, and then we can move down to maybe you and your partner, and then we can move down to the children. You have to fill the cup or you're going to be exhausted, especially in a climate where people are like negative Nellies. And and I think a lot of people who were positive at the start just feel like old tires that are just worn down over time, right? And there's nothing wrong if you feel worn down. There's nothing wrong with just saying, you know what, I need like to take 20 for me, but I can't because I have the kids running around the house. I have all these things to do. It's okay to take a breath and to take a couple moments for yourself. The practice of Tonglen, again, is this idea that we have this heart center that's like this, white light, and we can breathe in people's suffering and then send them out what they need. And in difficult times, I find this is like, I think the most probably airy-fairy one that what we've done, but it's one of my favorite for a reason, because I use this informally quite a bit. Even if I'm talking to a client and I find that they're struggling, I'll like breathe in their sadness. And as I'm breathing out, I'm imagining sending them joy or like love. And that's the idea of Tonglen, that you breathe in what the person's experiencing. And this is the key. Okay. I don't want Melinda to breathe in sadness and then go like, okay, now it's mine. That's not what we're talking about, girl. Okay. Most people do that. Most people have like this giant straw and they're just like, to people's sadness or anger. Then they go home. The person leaves you and they're like, oh, that was great. Melinda's like so helpful. And then Melinda has 15 things on her mind that's not even hers, right? So, I knew this, especially when I worked at Children's Aid or in addictions. I found that I was constantly kind of wearing other people's stuff. And I would get home and I'm like, man, I'm like out of it today. And I was like, well, it's because you talked to 7 people and they all had addiction issues and they were using substances and talking about childhood trauma. And I didn't have a way to work with it. So I came up with this idea of that you can feel it, but you can't be it. So if Melinda's talking to somebody and they're sad, there's nothing wrong with Melinda's naturally going to have compassion and her heart's going to go out to them. That's the act of compassion, right? Your heart naturally does that. The next level is to go, wow, they're really dealing with sadness. That's not my sadness. This is their sadness. I find identifying that is really helpful. And then to say, breathing in their sadness and then breathing out joy or happiness. Right. I've done this with people when I'm working people in addictions, or especially when I was working people in poverty. I would like be in this weird spot of like breathing in their hunger and then sending them out, like hopefully their belly's full tonight, like that idea. And you can use it for anything. And I find, one of my buddies in the jails uses this situation when he's dealing with people who are very angry at him. And he's been using it and he has said it's helped quite a bit. Because I find what it doesn't make, if let's say Melinda is really frustrated with me and we're having a conversation in life or on the phone or in text, it's very easy for me to get defensive on what she's saying or talking about, and then to snap back, which is a reaction. And if you think that if 50% of the people that you dealt with every day did this, oh, Melinda's being angry, frustrated, cool, noticing her anger, sending her clarity. Even if it doesn't like do anything for her, it's giving me a perspective and looking at it differently. Because what we normally do is like, I meet Melinda's anger with my anger. And I'm like, no, that's not how it went. Right. Which, as a public speaker, I deal with this quite a bit. Right. I was in Windsor and this woman said, listen, like, which is never a great way just to start a sentence with anybody when they say, hey, do you have any questions? And someone says, listen, right? And my back's like this right away, I get in like boxing mode, right? So she's like, listen. I was like, uh-oh. Well, you said that I can't think every day. And I was like, what? Like, what? I never say people can't think. That's literally impossible. Well, you said that when I go to the bathroom, I should be present on my walk to the bathroom. And I get some of my best thinking done then. I was like, okay, like this is going in a weird place. Right. And I said to her, like, as she's doing this, I'm like, try not to smile because I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to use this at a webinar or teaching soon because this is great material. Right. So as she's talking about like, listen to me, all I did is I breathed in her anger and sent her out clarity. Like as she was like, meh, to me. Okay. And she was like that. And later on, she went on for quite a bit. And I said, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. I'm like, okay, cool. We're not going to argue over it. But I'm like, class, did I say that? They're all like, no, he didn't. I'm like, see, you made it fit your narrative. That's what people do. And me like fighting her in front of everybody, I know is a losing game for me. Right. It's like a Mark Twain quote, but also I think Jay-Z modernized it. It was like, I don't argue with a fool because from a distance, you can't tell who the fool is. I think it's a really, really great quote. So when you are being met with frustrating humans, breathe it in and acknowledge what they're experiencing and breathe out maybe what they need. When you're dealing with sadness or frustration in your loved ones, do that. Like my one sister's in Florida is having a pretty tough go because we haven't seen her in like a year, right? So she's having a tough go. So I'm not having that tough of a go, right, comparatively. So like, but I feel for her. So I go breathe in her suffering. The difference is I'm not eating it like most people do. And most people eat other people's stuff. They go into their fridge and cupboards and take all the junk and just like make a meal out of it. And they're like, oh man, this doesn't feel good. but they keep doing it. So the idea of Tonglen is to breathe it in through your heart and to know that everything's impermanent. The anger that you're feeling now, or the frustration you're feeling, or that your loved ones are feeling is not here forever. It's just here in this moment. Yeah, Mike, but it's been a year. Well, it hasn't been a year of you being angry constantly. Let's be real. You've also had moments of like joy, I promise you, or love. Okay, if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't be doing webinars. I'd be traveling around. So this has changed how I do things. I've spent more time with my boys. Now I'm like primary parent to the exponent 10. My wife's working like long, crazy healthcare hours now, right? Because just all these more protocols and stuff to follow. So I just think that when we can look at things and not link them together, like the chain that we normally do in the chain of thoughts, like anger today's different than anger how it was last April. It is different. But you can breathe your stuff in and also send you what you need, which is a pretty advanced thing. But I believe that it's my experience that it can be done. And this is why I don't do this. This is why I didn't talk about this week 1 or 2, because you're like, what is this guy talking about? Like, breathe in who? What am I doing? I would only introduce it 8 weeks in, because this is a more of advanced practice. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Melinda.
So a really weird imagery. It's kind of showing my age, and I apologize, but I'm an emotional sponge, and I tend to hold on to that. This
Sure.
8 weeks has made me more mindful of when I'm doing that, and then it's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
Right. But that energy of trying to turn it around and give it back, like almost like recycle it and send it back, kind of just all of a sudden sent an image of the Care Bears. Like, you remember that?
Exactly. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay, now I'm just showing my age, but you know, like it made me smile, but maybe it's something that will trigger next time I'm in one of those really emotional times.
So that's a great image. And sometimes when I bring like slides or do that kind of stuff, PowerPoint dish, I actually usually have imagery of a Care Bear, because I call it Care Bear syndrome. That a lot of people who work from their heart, Melinda, are doing this. And guys, we're humans. I'm gonna be going late. I didn't realize it was 7:29. So if you have to go, like, I promise I won't be angry or frustrated with you and curse you in my mind. But most people, when they're doing that, they're doing this out, right? They're doing that all the time. And if you look at, I guarantee you, the average person on this phone or on this call on my phone, I guarantee the average person paying attention right now gives way more out than they take from other people. Like, if everyone was really honest right now and made a list of people that you give to more than you take from them, and then vice versa, who you take from more than you give, like, does anyone even have one person that they take more from? Maybe 2. And I just think that it just shows, with, especially right now when people are really suffering, the lighthouses, so those Care Bears, people are going to come to you even more often because they know that's where the good stuff comes. But it's like, I was talking to this client and he was like, man, I'm not a rock though. Like, I'm a human and I only have so much energy. And I was like, I know, dude. This is why if I'm coming down with something, I take a day off. I will cancel an entire day. And my wife's always like, why are you like, aren't you worried that your clients will be mad? I'm like, listen, I don't want to work with people that want me to work at 40%. Right? Like, this work is sometimes challenging. It's a lot of energy out. And if the work that you're doing can be a lot of this, and then you go home and do that for free. So if you're giving out, and you are, because that's why you're on the call, let's be real, right? If you're giving out, just make sure you have some gas in the tank. And I find that working with things, it doesn't always mean you have to do selfish meditations, but formally doing Tonglen and then informally introducing in your life can be a game changer. So let's do that, shall we? And again, if you have to go, I totally understand. I'm sorry I went over, but I got lots to say about this in particular. So again, allow your eyes to close. We'll do a short version of this. What I just have you do is I just want you just to set your intent to just open to the idea of Tonglen, sending and receiving. So thinking of someone who you love, who's easy to love. And I'm just thinking of Bo. We were playing soccer today, and he was tackling my oldest son, like just tackling him. And I'm like, and getting upset that he's not allowed to tackle, and he kept doing it and pushing him down. It was pretty funny. And then he got upset because I gave him the beeswax for it. So think of someone who's easy to love, and then just bring to mind a suffering that they've had, a sadness, an anger, some hurt, whatever's there, shame. So breathe in. So I'm breathing in his sadness. I'm letting it touch my heart fully. I'm not attaching to it. I'm just noticing it. And then I'm breathing out joy to him, thinking of him. I'm breathing in his sadness. I'm allowing it to touch my heart. And then I'm breathing out joy, wishing him that he finds his joy or happiness. And then you can bring in some other people that you know. So I'm thinking of one of my friends who's a pilot who's basically been out of work for a year. So I'm thinking of him and his family, and I'm feeling like, he feels there's a little helplessness there and frustration. So I'm breathing in his frustration. I'm allowing it to touch my heart. And then as I breathe out, I'm sending him some clarity or well wishes. Again, what you think is best for them or what they need, not in a judgmental way, but just if this was you experiencing sadness, would you want love or clarity? And again, breathing in and allowing it to touch your heart, allowing it to fill your heart. And then as you breathe out, sending them this well wishes or this love. And now I want you to think of somebody who's experiencing a similar situation as you are. So maybe there's a frustrating situation that you're aware of, or maybe you're experiencing some anxiety or some worry. And just think of someone who's experiencing a very similar situation, or you can imagine yourself or a younger version of you. I always find that helpful. And then breathing in, and as you breathe in, allowing that frustration or anxiety, whatever you're experiencing, to touch your heart. And then breathing out, sending it to the other person and or yourself what you need as you send it out. Breathing in, noticing what that is, allowing it to touch your heart, breathing out and sending it. And when you're ready, just allowing your eyes to open. So that's the idea of Tonglen. I think someone also messaged, Cheryl messaged that they also had the imagery of a Care Bear, which is kind of pretty cool, right? So that's the practice this week. Okay, that's the practice. And just because we are not, don't have anything scheduled to do soon, it doesn't mean that you have to stop messaging me, right? If you have a question about your practice, or if you have a question about how can I introduce this with kids, Mike, or I've been doing this Tonglen for a couple of weeks, and what's next, or any suggestions, like please feel free again to DM me on Instagram, Mindful Masse, MASSE, or on my website, mindfulmike.ca, for sure. Right. Again, on Instagram, I usually post at least one video a week of how to use mindfulness in real life. At least that's my goal. Okay. So if there's any questions, comments, concerns, we can do that now for sure. I'm very thankful, one, for the humans like Karen who bring me in and like recommend that I do this kind of stuff. And, and I'm extremely thankful for you all that have been showing up, right? Regardless if you're watching this live or online. I know there's been a lot of positive feedback. I really appreciate that. I haven't heard the negative feedback. There's always something, but I don't listen too much to that. So, I appreciate you that are making an effort to show up, because I know how it can be a pain in the A word to just show up on a Wednesday night when you've already had a day, right? So I appreciate that, because it makes my job much easier than talking to a bunch of blank screens. So thank you for what you do and showing up, everybody. Cool beans.